Rosie pointed at her father's stomach.
"I think much of your profit would end up there,"
she said, grinning. Dougal patted his belly.
"Aye, a great storehouse. No better place for good ale."
He drank again and then turned to Magnus.
"What do you think?"
The two men began discussing the various rates of tax on the people they both came across. Beside Fleance, Rosie sighed.
"So boring,"
she whispered. She stood up and went over to their wagon. He watched her go and delighted in seeing the jumping light from the fire highlight the lovely curves of her hips and swelling of her breasts. Inwardly, he shook himself. It was not honorable to think about her in that way all the time. When she came back, she was carrying a clay pot and sat down beside her mother. Fleance watched as she gently unwound the grey bandages from her mother's hands. He had heard Miri telling Magnus of the stiffness and twisting that Rebecca suffered in her hands, and how Rosie was called upon to do all the harder tasks for both women. Rosie scooped up some ointment and began to carefully massage it into the knotted fingers and joints of her mother's hands. By the look on Rebecca's face, it was clear this was painful, but she said nothing, and her daughter gently rewrapped the bandages, wiping her hands on her apron. Only when her daughter kissed her forehead did Rebecca speak.
"Thank you, my pet. You're God's gift for any mother."
Rosie smiled and looked over to Fleance. She winked at him, and then returned the pot to the wagon. He barely remembered what he ate or said, or did, but when Fleance finally crawled into his bed, his mind was filled with only her. The next morning, Rosie and her family left at dawn to travel back to their village. Fleance had no idea when he would see them again, and was surprised at the emptiness their departure left in his world. A month later, Magnus announced that they would all travel south to attend a village carnival. Kiwi was excited, but Fleance not so. He knew Magnus would expect him to compete in the crossbow competition.
"I'd rather keep hunting, Magnus,"
Fleance said.
"The game is abundant at present, and I believe I can earn well with the skins."
But Magnus would have none of it.
"You need the practice against other fellows as skilled as yourself,"
the older man told Fleance.
"Besides, the prize money is handsome."
This should have been enough to tempt him. But when Magnus turned to Miri and said,
"Dougal and Rebecca have sent word they will attend,"
suddenly, the prospect of travelling to a village carnival a day's ride away became more interesting. If Dougal and Rebecca were to attend, so would their daughter. Over and over, he thought about what he might say to Rosie when he next saw her, and then what he would do next, say next, whether he would find the right words or make a fool of himself instead. The next day, they packed up their camp, loaded the wagons and set off with Fleance driving one, and Magnus, Miri and Kiwi in the other. Willow, Fleance's father's horse, trotted behind. The sun was hot even for this time of the morning, so Fleance pulled on his hat to shield his eyes from the glare of the bright day. His stomach was jittery with butterflies, so he tried to concentrate on the road ahead. They stopped for lunch beside a fast-flowing stream and replenished their water skins. Magnus unhitched the horses and, after eating well, retired to the shade of an oak tree, promptly falling asleep. Fleance jiggled his legs impatiently. He always became anxious when sitting around doing nothing. The horses did need a rest, but he was keen to get to the village. Miri was replaiting Kiwi's hair, and the two discussed ribbons and laces, while Fleance picked at the bark of the tree where he sat waiting. Finally, Magnus stirred, and they were on their way again. The village was bustling and crowded and noisy when they arrived. Animals running free or in crates added to the cacophony of sound that greeted them as they drove the wagons down the busy main road. The actual carnival was set on a large clearing at the north end of the town, and many visitors had already set up their caravans and tents.
"We will find a quieter spot,"
Magnus called back to Fleance. The whole time they were driving through the village and passing people, Fleance sat up straight and strong, trying to appear tall.